Hello and welcome back to the Bit Beacon Broadcast. Today we have for you episode 081. It's May 5th, 2025. You can call me Kodax and I'll be your host through this week's broadcast. It's been a few weeks since our last show, as I was away in Mexico City having a wonderful time. It's truly a fantastic place. I encourage you to visit if you've never been before. But don't worry, I won't tell you all about my trip. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming. So while I was away, I had a few orders come in. I had an order from Shantae, or an order from Limited Run Games that included a new Shantae game, as well as a PS5 game. So real quick, let me talk about the order. First up, with Shantae Advance Risky Revolution. Now, you might be wondering, why would they put the word advance in the title of this game? Well, Shantae Advance is a long-lost Game Boy Advance game that has now finally been completed and actually released on playable Game Boy Advance cartridges. So these games have made their way out to the world. It comes in a nice Game Boy Advance style box, courtesy of Limited Run, way forward. I believe the game will also be receiving ports to other platforms later this year or next year, so you can look forward to that if you don't have a Game Boy Advance or don't want to play on Game Boy Advance. But I had to have it on, real Game Boy Advance hardware. Now, there have unfortunately been some stories about the quality of these cartridges not being very good. Limited Run apparently reused different pieces and cartridge pieces, the board pieces as well as the components from various other Game Boy Advance games to make their cartridges, and people are reporting that their cartridges are dirty and messy and not functioning correctly in their games. These reports do seem to be fewer rather than greater in number, but the fact remains that they are reusing old Game Boy Advance cartridges, taking them apart, mixing and matching different pieces needed to get the game to run correctly. So something worth noting, you can't buy this anymore. You could only get this in a pre-order period. Maybe some quality control issues there on Limited Run's part. It's not the first time that they've had issues with something like this with one of their retro releases. The other game that arrived as part of my order is Pentiment from Obsidian Entertainment and Xbox Game Studios. So this game last year released on PlayStation 5, and Limited Run partnered with Xbox Game Studios to produce physical copies of some of Xbox's now on PlayStation games as physical titles. So this is one of those games, kind of a momentous occasion with Pentiment. What were the other two games? I can't remember them off the top of my head. But so this marked the beginning of Xbox games coming to PlayStation, and I thought this was an appropriate game to sort of purchase physically and mark, that transition from Xbox making exclusives to now making games for all consoles effectively. So yeah, this is Pentiment. It's a pretty unique game. It's in the art style of medieval kind of stuff you'd kind of see on medieval scrolls. So the whole game kind of takes place seemingly on the art or the easel of an artist as you kind of go through and uncover a mystery. And I guess it's kind of open-ended in a lot of ways. It says choose different academic and social backgrounds for your main character. Meet a colorful cast of characters. You discover the stories and secrets that lie within. Each decision you make can have a profound impact on the community's future. Step into a living illustrated world in a time when Europe is at a crossroads of great religious and political change. Walk in the footsteps of Andreas Mahler, a master artist who finds himself in the middle of murders, scandals, and intrigue in the Bavarian Alps. So yeah, sounds like a pretty cool game. Unique for sure. The other title I got while I was away in Mexico, this one is an Amazon exclusive of all things. For PlayStation 4, we have Lunar Remastered Collection. So this is a port of two games, Lunar Silver Star Story and Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. I believe these were originally released for the Sega Saturn and PlayStation 1, and they are cult games. They have a huge following. They're traditional, classic, turn-based JRPGs. They've got kind of that 90s anime aesthetic to them that's really, striking and memorable. And, pixel art games. And, they're also very expensive games on PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn. So the fact that they are now available again, physically as well as digitally, on PlayStation 4, obviously backwards compatible with PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, and it'll be forwards compatible with Nintendo Switch 2, and Xbox series consoles, X and S. I don't know if it's an Xbox One game too, I can't quite remember. But really cool that Gung Ho, the publisher, and Katagawa, that they have brought these forward so people can experience them today, again, in 2025, without having to pay, $500 for a used copy. Now, the last game I have is also the game that I have been playing a lot over this last week since I returned home from Mexico. And the title is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It's made by a French developer. This is their first game together as a studio. The developer is Sandfall Interactive. It's published by Kepler. And this is a really special, unique game. One of those games that you come across once in a blue moon. So since I've been playing it, let me just share a little bit about it. The premise of the game, as it's established pretty early on, is that far off in the distance, this weird, bizarro Paris version, alternate reality, I guess, this like French area, this has this group of humans that has somehow survived after this kind of crazy calamity almost 100 years earlier. And far off in the distance, they can see this giant pillar sticking out of like the water, like this piece of sand, or like, piece of land. And there's this giant white-haired woman, but she's like a giant, giant. And once a year, she turns around and paints a number on this pillar. And this year, it's now 33. So at the beginning of the game, you kind of see the paintress do this. And what that means is that everybody who's currently alive can only live up to 33 years old. So, and when she paints a new number each year, which it goes down, so next year it would be 32, everyone who is alive at that age, at that time, basically ceases to exist in this kind of explosion of flowers known as a gommage. There's a lot of French words kind of interweaved into the story, into the language spoken, even though I'm playing in English, which I appreciate. It adds a little bit to the flavor of the world and the environment and the characters. And so each year, this group of people sets a new expedition out to this land to try and stop this from happening. And so it's been counting down from 100 effectively. So you play as the group of people known as Expedition 33. And so you're off to this faraway land to stop the paintress or attempt to stop the paintress from, painting down a year from now until 32. And, it just gets, lower and lower. So that means if you're like a kid right now when this is born, because you're aging and the number is going down, eventually, only like a 16-year-old, this would be over with at like age 16, for like someone who was born the day that, the countdown kind of went down one. If I'm making any sense here, I'm not really sure. But it's an interesting concept. And what's cool is that while you're exploring on this land, you're essentially encountering remnants of the previous expedition groups, and you find their journals and audio logs, and you can see where they made progress that have helped set the stage for your success. So that's really the basic premise of the story, and I won't really say any more. But the gameplay is completely turn-based combat in the vein of like a traditional kind of Final Fantasy game, with a few exceptions. This game has an active dodge and parry. So when an enemy strikes, if you time correctly with the circle button on PlayStation, you can do a dodge and like completely avoid taking any damage of their attack. And if your timing is even better, the window to be successful is smaller, but you can even do a parry or a parry, which enables you to strike back at the opponent and deal some damage, as well as avoid taking damage in the first place. So it adds like an extra level of skill and action on top of the thoughtful, take your time, turn-based combat. So it's a really nice combination of the two worlds. A lot of times people complain that they get bored playing turn-based games because it's kind of a passive thing. So you take a really engaging, interesting story, combine it with really intense and kind of not passionate, but like involved gameplay. And then on top of that, it has some incredible music. The visuals of the game, like the vibes are just off the charts with this game. From the French influence, the weird kind of abstract, dystopian, messed up world, and just the fun gameplay. I mean, I am just like hooked. It's completely hooked me. I am just 100% into this game entirely. It's like, taking over my thoughts during the day, distracting me when I should be focused on work, that kind of thing. Like I am just, I just love it. It's got a really great cast too. The main character is played by Charlie Cox, who maybe you don't know, but he plays Daredevil on the Netflix series as well as the Disney Plus series. And he was also in Boardwalk Empire and other shows as well. He's fantastic. I absolutely love that man. And just everyone is really good in the game. Like, and it's crazy. This is not a $80 game. This is a $50 game. And it is somehow taking the world by storm right now. It's sold over 1 million copies in just a handful of days. For an unknown publisher, this is huge. Just how great the game is. Word of mouth is super strong, and people are really, really enjoying it. So if you're looking now, people, it's not hard per se, but it does take some getting used to. And if you miss a bunch of attacks, your characters can get like wiped out. Your team can get wiped out very immediately. Like you do have to at very least get good at dodging. You can almost totally ignore parrying if you want to. If you just want to focus on dodging, that's fine. You can still totally play through the game. That's mostly what I'm doing. I'm not parrying unless I like really need to for some reason. But it's a little intimidating at first, I will admit. The enemies are really scary and ferocious looking, and they will like sometimes do like 6-7 hit combos, and you have to like get really into the rhythm of dodging every single attack. And they do these really like they fake out where you kind of get into a rhythm, and then for their fourth attack they kind of like hold back for a second, so you end up dodging too early, and then you take a big hit. It's crazy. But I find that I'm getting better the more I play the game. Although the game always tends to then throw you a curveball to mess you up. So you gotta almost get good all over again. But I don't think it's too difficult. I think it is perfectly manageable. But yeah, maybe at first you might be in for a shock when you see how easily you get wiped out. But wow, what a game, man. What a game. Expedition 33, Clair Obscur. I highly, highly recommend it. Apologies if I sound a little off. I have been kind of sick this past week. So my throat, I can already feel it kind of right now, struggling to keep up with the podcast, but I'm going to try to power through here. So this weekend, I've got the Star Rail 2nd anniversary event. My anticipation is, of course, growing, but I don't really have much else to report. So next week, you'll be hearing about that. However, this past week, I secured tickets to yet another Nintendo event. The grand opening of Nintendo San Francisco, the new West Coast flagship retail location for all things Nintendo. On May 15th, I'll be flying into the Bay to attend the grand opening of the store, and then I'll be flying home that same evening. That probably sounds a little crazy. just to do some shopping. But this is Nintendo we're talking about here. There are only 4 other Nintendo store locations in the world: Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, and New York. And we are finally getting one of these in my home state. This is a reason to celebrate. Now, I'm kind of sour because the store isn't in Los Angeles, so this will probably be the only time I go out of my way to attend an event there. The store in New York is known for hosting all kinds of extravagant events for game launches, Nintendo Directs, live screenings, that kind of thing. And I have no doubt the store in San Francisco will eventually do the same. So, leave me alone. Let me have my one-day shopping trip. While I was gone, the Nintendo Switch 2 went up for pre-order in the US finally. You probably already knew that if you were making plans to obtain one, though. Surprisingly, the price of the unit did not increase. It stayed at $450 or $500 for the Mario Kart bundle. This is likely due to the 90-day delay on plans for US tariffs to take effect, unless you're China, of course. Since Nintendo pivoted to producing more of their console in Vietnam and has worked up a stockpile of consoles in the country previously, this allows them to keep the console price as originally announced. Unfortunately, prices of accessories and amiibo have jumped up as a result of the tariffs on China. Most of the accessories like controllers, carrying cases, and the new camera all jumped up in price between $5 to $10. The worst hit, though, are the amiibos. These newly revealed Zelda amiibo went from $20 to $30. That is a massive 50% increase in price. And the Street Fighter amiibo went from $30 to $40. This increase, let me tell you, from first-hand experience, from pre-order experience, is going to hurt the wallet. The Street Fighter amiibo were already expensive at $30. Even the Zelda amiibo were a little pricey at $20. So this is crazy. It kind of makes sense that they're all still available for pre-order. I don't think most people can afford to drop that kind of money. The majority of retailers in the Americas made their Nintendo Switch 2 stock available around 9 p.m. Pacific time on April 23rd, or midnight Eastern on the 24th. Thankfully, I was somewhere where I had strong Wi-Fi signal and was able to pre-order a few consoles at different retailers. I secured one for myself, another for Ravenheart, and I've got one more I've yet to find a home for yet. If you're salty because you didn't get one and I somehow got 3, don't hate the gamer, hate the game. While maybe Nintendo was savvy enough to start manufacturing their consoles outside of China a few years back, Microsoft does not seem to have been so wise. Microsoft announced on May 1st the retail pricing for almost all Xbox first-party consoles, controllers, and accessories would be increasing. Why? Microsoft cites market conditions and the rising price of game development. Here's the full quote. "We understand that these changes are challenging and that they were made with careful consideration and given market conditions and the rising cost of development. Looking ahead, we continue to focus on offering more ways to play more games across any screen and ensuring value for Xbox players. I'm not sure how they are planning on courting more players with value like this. So what's the damage?" IGN broke down the previous MSRP compared to the new updated MSRP. The Xbox Series S 512GB was $299.99 and is now $379.99. The Xbox Series S 1TB was $349.99, now $429.99. The Xbox Series X Digital was $449.99, now $549.99. That's a $100 increase right there. The Xbox Series X with the disc reader was $499.99, is now $599.99. The 2TB Xbox Series X Special Edition was $599.99, is now $729.99. That is crazy. That's almost the price of a PlayStation 5 Pro. The Xbox Wireless Controller Limited Edition was $79.99, now $89.99. The Elite Controller Series 2 Core was $139, now $149. Not too bad, $10 increase. The Elite wireless controller was $179, now $199, and the Xbox wireless headset went up $10 from $109.99 to $119.99. These Xbox console numbers are crazy. Who is going to pay for this? I got my Series X on launch for nearly $400 with some discount coupons I had at Target. I can't imagine paying $600 for it now, 5 years after launch. This might be the first console generation where the price of consoles has gone up over time as opposed to going down. Xbox Series X is nearly 5 years old alongside the base PlayStation 5. Something is terribly wrong here. Now the question is, does Sony raise the price in the US as well? Last we heard they have a large surplus of stock in the US, but that is going to run out eventually, and then what? I tell you that PlayStation 5 Pro purchase I made last year is looking like a better and better deal by the day. If the next PlayStation and Xbox were originally going to launch in 3 or so years, I think those plans have been tossed out the window at this point. What are we supposed to do? Pay $1,000 or more for a new console? The price of hardware and accessories wasn't the only new news from Xbox this morning. They also announced that Xbox games would soon be releasing at an $80 price point later this year. For this, I squarely place the blame on Nintendo with their $80 Switch games. I have no doubt that PlayStation will also have a first-party $80 game out later this year or next. I'm concerned the industry is headed for collapse. It's getting to unsustainable levels. If the price on games keeps going up, full-price sales will start to slow down, and people will wait for price drops, leading to less games sold overall and less revenue generated by the publishers and developers, leading to more layoffs and more studio closures. It's really not looking good. And in a confirmation of that uncomfortable feeling I'm having, Electronic Arts announced that around 300 of their employees across their studios and offices would be without a job. First up, 100 roles at Respawn would be eliminated. The studio is responsible for titles like Titanfall, Apex Legends, and the Star Wars Jedi series. The studio is no stranger to layoffs, having lost around 100 employees back in early 2024. This time, 2 projects in incubation have been canceled, and there were layoffs on the Star Wars Jedi and Apex Legends teams. If you thought the second Star Wars Jedi's game, was buggy mess at launch, just wait until the third game comes out. It's probably going to be really bad. Another 200 employees were laid off across other departments and developers at EA. IGN reports that 200 roles were primarily across its EA Experiences team, meaning player support, influencer relations, marketing, that kind of thing, but that some other game studios were also affected. While these layoffs are not insignificant, EA still employs more than 13,000 people across the planet. But why these cuts and why now? Insiders are saying games like Apex Legends and EA Football Club have been missing internal targets this past year. Alongside commercial flops like Dragon Age the Veilguard, which I loved, EA is not happy with their financial results. But what does EA say about this themselves? They say, as part of our continued focus on our long-term strategic priorities, we've made select changes within our organization that more effectively aligns teams and allocates resources in service of driving future growth. We are treating our people with care and respect throughout this process, working to minimize impacts by helping affected employees explore new opportunities within the company when possible, and providing support during the transition. Translation: we need to make it look like we are making more money than we actually are, and the only way to do that is by cutting the headcount. Also, we really care about you employees. You know, the usual corporate BS. And transmission.